What is up, everybody? Welcome into the Pack-A-Day Podcast and Pack-A-Day Podcast Live. I'm your host, Andy Herman, which does not matter at all because I have way better guests to talk about in intro. So let's get started right away. First of all is from WLUK Fox 11 here in Green Bay, sports reporter extraordinaire Nicole Menner, and of course, the one and only Matt Schneidman. You can follow him on Twitter at Matt Schneidman of athletic fame. He is currently on Aaron Judge watch. So if anything happens with Aaron Judge while we are on the stream, you will be the first to know because Matt will be the first to know, and then we will all know from there. So guys, friends, how the heck are you doing? Thanks so much for doing this. I appreciate you both incredibly much.
So excited to be on here. And if Aaron Judge hits a home run and Schneidman goes crazy, I might have to hang up.
Fair enough.
I'm doing great. I'm ready for London. I'm excited to go. And I may or may not have a stream of the Yankee game in the background, but my full focus is on this. I can guarantee you that.
If I were in your place, Matt, just to be totally transparent, I would have like 40% focus on this. So I totally get it and understand, especially if Aaron Judge is up to bat. You can just tell me and we're good to go. But obviously, we've got a lot of Packers stuff to discuss, and I'm so excited to talk with both of you about it. I want to start with the latest signing, Eric Wilson. New linebacker, had a stint obviously with the Minnesota Vikings, was on the Saints practice squad. He gets to go to London in back-to-back weeks, assuming he went a week ago. But this seems like a special team signing, and it seems like Brian Gutekunst is sort of, stacking special teams talent. Matt, did this signing kind of catch you by surprise where they didn't elevate somebody from the practice squad, or is just this Brian doing, what Brian does through the middle of the season?
Yeah, it didn't really catch me by surprise. I mean, this guy has played against the Packers a bunch when he was with the Vikings, and kind of goes back to what Matt LaFleur talked about or has talked about in recent weeks, and that's signing guys who are not, linebackers first who also happen to play special teams, but signing special teamers who also happen to play linebacker, if that makes sense. And he's one of those guys. I don't know how much he'll know right away or contribute right away, but obviously with Chris Barnes dealing with that ankle injury, I believe it was, that he suffered a couple weeks ago, and Caleb Jones going on NFI, they had an open roster spot, and they normally carry 4 inside linebackers. So look, maybe Eric Wilson is about to take Devondre Campbell's spot if he misses a few more tackles like he has, but I doubt it. I think it's just depth in special teams.
We'll talk about that a little bit more. Nicole, Matt mentioned, right, like a special teams player first who can also play another position. That worked out pretty darn well for Rudy Ford, who they got from the Jaguars. He had a really nice week this week, but sort of stockpiling these special teams players, whether it's Dallin Leavitt, Keyshawn Nixon, now Eric Wilson, like all of these guys are really coming in handy, and this special teams has been much improved so far this season.
Absolutely. And I think the more special team vets you can bring in, the better right now. The Packers special teams unit still kind of trying to figure some things out. After the Tampa game, it looked like things were really on the up. And maybe after this week, still trying to, as all 3 phases, still trying to kind of figure things out and find some more consistency week to week.
Yeah, certainly just another weapon for Rich Bisaccia. I know Zach Cruz tweeted out, these were Eric Wilson's special teams grades during his stint with the Vikings per PFF. I don't know who does grades. It's so ridiculous and lame.
I trust Andy Herman's grades way more than PFF.
I was going to say every week, I'm like, I just let you guys do the work. I go to your Twitter, I figure out what the grades are and who is graded the best.
Perfect. I should do the same thing if we're being honest here. But per PFF, here were his special teams grades in 2017, 90.2, third best in the NFL, 78.9 in 2018, 77.5 in 2019, and 90.0 in 2020, ninth best in the NFL. I don't know if Zach conveniently left off 2021 because it was way worse, but either way, I had a special team stint in Minnesota when he was there. So again, whether it's the guys we mentioned, Corey Ballantyne, they picked up as a practice squad guy who has a lot of special teams experience. It's just nice that this isn't just a, afterthought like it kind of had been in the past. Still think they can probably do something maybe about returner, but we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. The bigger thing besides special teams is obviously the Packers traveling to London this week. Matt, I'll start with you since you are traveling to London. You can probably speak to maybe the challenges of traveling over to London on a game week, but how is this going to affect Matt LaFleur, the Packers? He was very tight-lipped in his press conference about their preparation this week.
Yeah, I think he just doesn't want to take the time to explain it to us. I don't think there's any real competitive advantage to it. Look, I went over in 2018 when I covered the Raiders and they played the Seahawks, and the Raiders spent the entire week over there. I was in London for a whole week. So obviously the Packers are taking a different approach. Rodgers was saying on with Pat McAfee today how if it was up to a vote, if the players got to vote, it might have, come out differently, and the Packers might have spent the whole week over there. I think they're going to try and stay up as long as possible when they get there on Friday. It's going to be tough. And like Matt said earlier in the week, whoever, handles the travel better and kind of strategizes how they're going to adjust to the time difference better will probably perform better. I still have not decided how I'm going to do it. I'm leaving Friday morning, getting there Friday night. I'm probably going to fall asleep during the game, but so be it. I don't have to play and hit people, but it's tricky because you don't know if you stay up or go to sleep right when you get there. I remember when I first got to London a couple of years ago, I had no idea what to do. And my whole day was thrown off. Like, I was up through all hours of the night. I was sleeping during the day. It just felt weird. So I think the key is to just be there for as short amount of time as possible. So you just have to make like a quick switch. And I also think they're doing that because when you come back to Green Bay on Monday, then their bodies won't have to readjust to Central Time after being on British time for a week. Now, if they had a bye week, maybe they would have spent the whole week in London, but they have to get ready for the Jets. So it's probably better in that regard that they're only spending 2 days. So they're not going to get completely used to British time before they come back.
Nicole, your thoughts on, how this could affect Green Bay and, obviously having to face a Giants team that's 3-1. And then, as Matt kind of mentioned, right away have to turn around and then get ready for the Jets right when they get back.
Well, and I actually think that's the biggest struggle with it. You don't just have to worry about getting there and getting adjusted. You have to worry about how you deal with coming back in the next game when there is no bye week. So I think it's absolutely a struggle. Like Matt said, Rodgers said today that they're trying to stay up as long as they can on Friday. I'm sure they'll do lights off on the plane Thursday night. Maybe they sleep on the plane. That's the goal. Then practice Friday morning and just kind of try to get acclimated as best they can. But it's a physically demanding stretch, as Rodgers said post-game. The team that is prepared the most, I guess, and can handle the craziness of the travel the best probably will win. And yeah, the Packers, as we've said, they have some things to figure out as far as just football related, aside from just the travel that they have to figure out. Because, you look at the stretch of the Giants, the Jets, and then going to Washington, and you think that they should be relatively games that the Packers should come out 6-1 at the end of it. But after seeing last week against the third string quarterback, I think the next 3 games, starting with the Giants, will be very telling for how quickly they can kind of start to figure some things out here. And it's just even more complicated having to go to London to do so.
See, and that's why Matt LaFleur blames us for creating the narrative that they have games won before they start. Because you say stuff like that.
Yeah, way to go.
Everyone's thinking
it's the NFL. No, I thought that was ridiculous how he said that. Well, he was just like, oh, you got to avoid thinking you've won games before they start.
Yeah.
We were like, all right, well, you're making it seem like you guys did that. Then he was like, no, that's you guys.
But it is, and you'd think that NFL players, they're professional athletes. Of course, you want to think that they aren't feeling that way. But I would think it's kind of hard to not go into a game with the mentality that this shouldn't be as hard as maybe facing Tom Brady in Tampa. I mean, you're going up against at least the second string quarterback. So I'm sure
it doesn't matter when your run defense is Swiss cheese.
Very true. I think this stretch is really, really interesting because while it's technically
there it goes, Holy, he did it.
He did it.
He did it. Yes, I told you it would happen. I told you.
This is amazing. This is absolutely amazing. I love the pure joy on your face. This is awesome. Oh my God.
Look, he did it. I don't know if I'm allowed to show Yes Network on this stream.
Probably not, but that's okay. That's amazing. I think baseball will be happy that more people are in.
Finally.
That is unbelievable.
And yes, it's the real record.
This would happen.
11 more. He's not on steroids.
This
All right,
is
go ahead. Keep talking about the Packers. I'm going to watch.
I don't even know where I want to go with this anymore. That's amazing. Congratulations to you and all Yankee fans out there. I mean, that's just awesome for baseball. No question about it too.
Oh, my head's too big for this hat to fit.
You have to keep it on now, I think. That is awesome. What a great piece of what a great moment as we're listening to this. But
you'll have that saved forever in your memory.
I know. This is one of the great.
I get my reaction on there. Oh, I love that. All right.
Oh, yeah, you're gonna be able to
hijacking this. Keep talking about
No, this is way better. Let's talk about the next 5 games though, just really quick, because I think while it's technically 2 home games and then they've got, of course, the 3-game road stretch, this is 5 stadiums in 5 days with a decent amount of travel, specifically when you think about London as well. So yeah, there are some teams that are not the greatest involved in that outside of the Bills. Lions, Commanders, Jets, Giants, that feels like a 4-1 stretch at worst. But when you go that much travel in a 5-game stretch in 5 weeks, that there's definitely going to be some challenges that come with that. I'll let anyone go there if they want, or we can go to the next topic.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I'm a little
that's on Aaron
distracted right
Judge.
now.
Yes, Andy, it's challenging for sure. And yeah, especially like we said, I mean, the Bills is kind of what's looming at the end of the month, and you want to go into that. You'd like to win the next 3 games before you head into the Bills, and hopefully figure a lot of things out before that game too.
I totally agreed. All right, let's talk about that Swiss cheese run defense that Matt talked about. I thought it was a very interesting comment from Matt LaFleur. Basically saying, yeah, sometimes we need to get out of our 2 shallow or 2 high safeties, and we need to bring a guy down in the box, especially when we know they're going to run the football. That seemed like a pretty cutting comment towards his defensive coordinator of what he's expecting moving forward. You posted some cut-ups from the game, and I'm sure it's going to be, if it's not up already, in your film breakdown from this week about not exactly setting the edge the best. I know there was a play from Devondre Campbell where Campbell didn't set it. There was another one from Garvin, I think, right after that. That happened as well. This team did not do the, kind of the fundamentals well in the run defense, but I feel like the coordinator didn't always set them up for success, which Matt LaFleur mentioned as well. What was your takeaway from your film review as well as from Matt LaFleur's comments, Matt?
Yeah, well, I'm only about 8 minutes into the all 22 of the game since that's going up Thursday, but from watching it live, I mean, one of the most glaring things was on the Patriots go-ahead drive late in the game when the ref said number 61 is now eligible before every single play because they brought in a 6th offensive lineman, and the Packers had no answer for it. I mean, you got to match that. You got to be the aggressor, and too often we see veterans like Dean Lowry and Darnell Savage either getting completely run over or grasping at air on tackles. And the 2 clips I posted, and I'm sure there will be more in my story in 2 mornings from now, is you have Rashawn Gary, who's been phenomenal against the pass, but not as good against the run. Jonathan Garvin, Jaron Reed, Devondre Campbell, get out to the edge. Like it's not like Damian Harris is already all the way out there. They're like in line with these guys, and they're just getting beat around the edge. Like you got to get off blocks, get to the edge. And a couple stats I came across today, which I think these are pretty telling, because like yards per rush allowed, it's indicative of how you're struggling. But like on 3rd and 1, teams aren't trying maybe to get 20 yards. So they'll only have 1 yard because that's what they need for the first down. So that obviously reflects better on the Packers' yards per rush allowed. But 3 that I want to point out. Yards per rush allowed on 1st and 2nd down. So when teams are trying to get more yards, 5.26. That's 29th in the NFL. Yards after contact per rush allowed. So can you bring a guy down on first contact? 3.36 yards after contact allowed per rush. That's 25th in the NFL. And percentage of opponent rushes for no gain or a loss, only 17.6%. That's 22nd in the NFL. And who do they have up next? The guy who's leading the NFL in rushing yards. So we'll see if they can do anything to fix it.
That was my next question for Nicole, is that they do have Saquon Barkley coming in, and that's going to be a major challenge. What does Green Bay need to do to kind of shore that up and get that fixed? And do you think they can get it done on a week where they have to travel to London and kind of make the corrections that they saw from a week ago against New England?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can almost use the Bucs game too as an example where you saw the way the Packers were able to contain the run in that game. I think it's just the inconsistency being the main issue. LaFleur mentioned the physicality being a factor in it. They just need to come out and be much more physical. But I also think it comes down to those adjustments. And it was almost, not to say LaFleur was calling out Joe Barry, but a little bit of a nudge that these adjustments have to happen. And you can even use the Vikings game as an example when we had that whole zone versus man debacle and there was no really adjustment made. So I think, when something's working for a team, you have to be able to adjust to it. And we didn't really see, I guess, much of that the other day. So again, it's a mix of that. It's a mix of making the adjustments, but it's obviously a mix too of the players owning their responsibility and coming out aggressive and physical, especially when you're facing a guy like Saquon Barkley.
There were a few things at play, I think, this week. I think the first was, as Matt mentioned, some of the players just not holding up their end of the bargain. I thought Kenny Clark, well, he's been phenomenal through the course of the season, had an uncharacteristic performance, just not holding up. And guess what? That means Quay Walker and Devondre Campbell are going to have to do a little bit more heavy lifting because some guys are actually getting to the second level, which isn't usually the case. They didn't respond very well to that. We saw guys, again, on the edge, whether it be Jonathan Garvin, Rashawn Gary, Devondre Campbell on the play, et cetera, not hold up their end of the bargain there. And then, as you've mentioned, Matt, there's been some missed tackles too. So, I get wanting to play the 2 high safeties and wanting to be safe and make sure that you're not allowing explosive plays, something Green Bay's been okay at so far this year. But you've got to then make sure that you're doing your job up front. And I don't think the guys up front necessarily did that this weekend with enough physicality, as Matt LaFleur mentioned as well. And then I think, kind of having a counter to some of those, Bill Belichick's going to have a bunch of, different things that he's going to throw your way, and not having something to counter. Well, it's 6 offensive linemen. Like, this isn't something like out of the blue, like totally new, like it's never been done before. Like, you add an extra guy in the box if you need to, go 4 defensive. Like, you can go in so many different directions to have a counter for that. They just didn't. And, New England put up 2 touchdown drives in the second half in large part because of it. So I think lack of adjustments, lack of bringing that extra safety down, getting outnumbered in the run game, and then guys just not doing their job. You're going to have all of a sudden some of those run numbers look poor. And thankfully you're playing Bailey Zappi and Brian Hoyer and can get out of there still with a win, because if you've got a better quarterback in that game might be over in the first half based on how that team played. Let's go from there. Let's talk, kind of in a similar vein about Devondre Campbell, because Matt, you kind of mentioned it before in jest about, a new linebacker maybe taking the spot. But Devondre has not been first team all pro Devondre through the course of this season so far. There have been missed tackles. I don't know if it was you who tweeted out that he had 6 missed tackles already and only 4 all of last season. Is there anything that you've noticed different from him, or is it just not making plays the way that we saw a season ago?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing to point out is that missing only 4 tackles in a season for an inside linebacker who's on the field pretty much every snap is ungodly. Like, there was bound to be, just like perhaps with Aaron Rodgers off of winning 2 straight MVPs, a slight regression at least. We've seen a little bit more than that this year. I don't know if I can pinpoint anything specific. He just doesn't seem like that guy who can cover sideline to sideline and let nothing get past him. It's not like an egregious blown coverage. It's just like the play I tweeted about. Like, he has enough ground to get Damian Harris. He's basically in line with him, and Harris just comes around the edge. Look, I understand he's a running back and Campbell's a linebacker who's much bigger, but we just don't see the same game-breaking stops that he had last year. It reminds me, and this is going to sound like an insult, probably because it is, but the Christian Kirksey, Blake Martinez days here of years past, because, they would have a lot of tackles, but it would be 5 yards past the first down marker, or when they reach at the guy's legs from behind after they got beat. So that could probably be the case now. Look, it's only 4 games in. He's got plenty of time. I'm not going to say yet, of course, the contract was a mistake. He's a bust. He was a one-hit wonder. It's just we're not seeing the same level of wrap up and get the guy down at first contact that we did last year.
Nicole, anything that you've noticed with Devondre, or anything that you think he can do going forward that, can kind of bring his game back to the level it was a season ago?
No, kind of just echoing what Matt said. And also my biggest thing too is, like he said, when you see a player so exceed your expectations last season, it's hard to, you want to see the same things from them, but obviously there's likely to be a regression. It's hard to keep that up. And you still see things like he does in the Tampa game. He's the reason that the Packers won that game. He broke up the 2-point conversion. So obviously still a valuable player. But just, the missed tackles, I think, kind of raising everyone's eyebrows right now. So hopefully, it's only been 4 games. Hopefully he gets that cleaned up starting now.
Yeah, totally agree. I think this is going to be a really interesting week when you look at, kind of this run defense going against Saquon Barkley and how they kind of respond off of last week, because I think if this team plays a little bit better team defense, I think everyone gets set up for success a little bit better. We talked about setting the edge, right? You set the edge, it funnels everything back inside. And guess what? Probably Devondre Campbell, Quay Walker, those guys are going to look better because everything's coming right to them. Kenny Clark's holding up at the point of attack, and then you're getting easy tackles that way. Like, people doing their basic jobs is going to set everyone up for more playmaking opportunities. And I don't think we've seen a ton of that. Obviously, Rashawn and Kenny have had a really great start to the season and they're making big plays. But I think if everyone kind of does their job, they're 111th, as Matt LaFleur likes to say. Yeah. I think we're going to see a lot of these guys start having better performances. Let's go to another player who is struggling with performance a little bit, and that is Amari Rodgers. Offensively, not getting any opportunities, I think, sort of understandably, but is still the kick returner, is still the punt returner. I don't know about you guys. I thought the one play, the one punt return where I think Schooler made the tackle, he was basically one-on-one, and Amari tries to what you would maybe call a juke, and then Schooler just brings him down with relative ease. It doesn't seem like he has that extra gear right now to separate in a return capacity. Nicole, I'll start with you. Is this something that they need to address and go in a different direction? Or are you more willing to say, hey, it's 4 games, let's give Amari a little bit more time here?
I go more with the first one, that I think it's something they need to address. And I think that his future is definitely in question with the Packers. He's not really doing anything spectacular to stand out on special teams. And then we're not seeing anything from him on offense. And again, that he's not being put out there, so it's hard to know what he could do. But clearly, I think something must be happening in practice. And we heard Aaron Rodgers' response when asked about it a few weeks ago. He didn't have much to say. And with Rodgers, whether it's good or bad, you want to hear him talking about the guys that he wants to see on the field. So I think there must just be something that we don't get to see at practice anymore that's not clicking with Amari, mistakes, whatever it may be. But I think at this point, it's probably safe to say that the team is maybe also trying to figure out what to do with him.
Matt?
Yeah, I think Nicole brought up a good point. The less Rodgers says, the worse. And that was pretty telling, because whether it be with Dobbs or Watson or even Juwan Winfrey or Samori Toure, he had more to say about them, whether it was good or bad. And the fact that, look, it didn't take Aaron Rodgers to tell us that Amari Rodgers didn't have a role on this offense. Look, I don't know if the Packers brought him in saying, oh, we're going to let him learn behind Cobb for a year, then have him take over. Randall Cobb has done nothing to tell the Packers that they should take him off the field. Rodgers was saying on McAfee today that he wants Randall Cobb to get more snaps and thinks he should. But look, Amari Rodgers just can't I don't say this literally, because he has made guys miss, but he has no explosiveness as a return man. He had one good return. I guess the improvement he's shown this year, and it wasn't even the case all Sunday, was he's not making completely head-scratching decisions. Like, you remember that Kansas City game last year where him and Malik Taylor both kind of half went for the punt. It bounced off someone's foot. The Chiefs recovered. He had one like that at the end of the game where he fielded it on a bounce at midfield with 4 seconds left.
Yep.
If that takes a wrong hop, the Patriots have a chance at a Hail Mary to win the game. So still, the decision-making isn't all the way there. He's had a couple, 8, 12-yard returns that don't make Packer fans, cringe and coil up because they think something is going to go horribly wrong, which I guess is an improvement. But listen, if you want the special teams to really round into form, the coverage units have been good for the most part, except on Sunday. The field goal operation has been great. The punt team has been great. You need a return guy who can make a difference, and Amari Rodgers just is not it. Now, I don't know if that means you put Randall Cobb out there. He's obviously, and I mean this with all due respect, more fragile than some of the younger guys. Do you want to risk him getting hurt, especially because of the role he has on offense? Do you want to risk Romeo Dobbs out there? But like is the case with the rest of special teams, sometimes you need to use a starter to make a difference. The Packers have taken that mentality to their coverage units, and it's worked in some regards.
They were using Kylan Hill last year before he got hurt a little bit, right?
Yeah, he was their kick returner last year. And the Packers might need to use a more impactful guy like Dobbs who can make people miss. Or, I don't know, Randall Cobb. Don't put Jair back there because he's just a wild boy back there, as we know. But listen, maybe put Dobbs back there because Amari Rodgers doesn't seem like the answer.
And the thing that always blows my mind is I get with a 53-man roster that it's really tough to have a specialist that just does one thing. But you've got 69 spots to play with now, including a 16-man practice squad, and you can call up a guy 3 times to give him a shot as just a returner if you want to. I know you still have 48, game day spots or whatever, but let's get somebody who, and I know Ballantyne did it a little bit, but let's get somebody that's a little bit more of a return specialist, at least on the practice squad, where if you've got an extra spot to play with, maybe you can try somebody as a kick returner, punt returner, and see if they can make a difference and see if they can be that guy. Because I've liked some of the blocking that's been set up. I think if that's a more dynamic returner, you might get some real explosive plays. Mm-hmm. And I just don't know that guy's on the roster. Christian Watson, I think, could do a great job kick returning. I don't know if you trust his hands enough to put him back there. That could be a little bit of an adventure. Kylan Hill, when he gets back, I loved what he did last year. I'm not sure if you want the guy coming off of an ACL, coming off when he injured it, I think, is a kick returner.
It was, yeah.
He took it out from 17 yards deep in the end zone against Arizona.
Yeah. So you want to put him back there right away as a kick returner when that's how he got hurt. So I don't know. I think they just got some answers there. And I struggle to think that Amari's it. I was hopeful for Amari coming into the season to potentially take a step and have a role. Best shape of his life season.
So much hype about him for sure this offseason.
Yeah, and it hasn't exactly come to fruition so far, but we'll see. If you think if he was a 7th round pick, is he still on the roster right now? Do you think?
No.
I don't think so.
I mean, the thing I said a couple times was the only reason Jay Sternberger stuck around here as long as he did was because he was a 3rd round pick. I mean,
and the clock still ran out at some point.
There were very few people that I apparently didn't have enough influence that did not want him on the team a second year because he just wasn't it. But that's the NFL. General managers, as good of a job as Goody has done, he has an ego that he wants to protect. And listen, if Amari Rodgers keeps at this pace, he certainly won't be on the team after this year, or at least shouldn't be. So we'll see.
Yeah, and I think that'll be one that is worth keeping an eye on. You brought up Randall Cobb, though, and I don't know where we can go with this, but like the guy on 3rd down has been absolutely ridiculous so far this season. He came up with a few key catches in that game, plus a holding penalty that drew a 1st down on a key 3rd down. He was integral to them last game. I'm not sure about that audible to Elton, or the lateral to Elton Jenkins. Yeah. That was probably not.
That wasn't audible. That was not the call.
Yes, exactly. That's a great point. But that clearly was not in the cards. But outside of that, he came up with some key plays. What have you seen out of Randall so far, Nicole?
Well, the thing with Randall too is, everyone. The first thought is that, well, he's only here because Rodgers wants him here, which isn't a lie. I mean, that probably is true. But you see how valuable he is on 3rd down. And as Rodgers said on McAfee, I think Schneidman said that he wants to see him out on the field more, and maybe Cobb deserves to be because he's come up big every time they've needed him to. And that's him on the football field. But there's also so much value of having him in that wide receiver room right now, being a vet and being the voice to pass along what Rodgers wants. I mean, that's a guy who knows Rodgers inside and out. And the young guys in that room need that. When Rodgers can't be in there, they need to be learning from Randall Cobb. And I think that kind of is it's a combination. He's showing that he's still very valuable on the field. He's a guy Rodgers can kind of go to. It's a bit automatic on 3rd down, but he's also a guy that I think they really need in that room right now when it's such a young room that still has a ways to go. So I think Randall Cobb is very valuable here. And I think people are talking about him more this week after Sunday's game. And I rightfully so.
Totally agreed, Matt.
Can you hear my laundry in the way background? I hope not. It's causing a freaking ruckus back there.
No.
Okay, good. And also, by the way, this is not beer. This is water that I've been drinking.
Liquid
I to stay hydrated. The presenting sponsor of Head of the Pack, by the way. They
sponsor Packet A too, so we're in good hands.
Oh, fantastic.
That doesn't look like water.
Well, it is. It's sparkling water. They sent me this for free, so thank you. Excluding the senseless lateral, or that play at least, because that play did also go for a 1st down, but I'm not counting that because the Patriots weren't really playing defense. Randall Cobb has 10 catches this year, including that. So 8 of his 9 other catches have earned a 1st down. He's caught 5 balls on 3rd down, and all 5 have gone for 1st downs. Like he's just automatic. And he was saying in the locker room after the game the other day, this is the best he's felt in 2 to 3 years. And he joked, you guys have put me in the retirement home. You guys think I should be in a nursing home. I feel great. And listen, it's kind of the unsung storyline that is making this Packers receiver core go as Dobbs and Watson kind of figure things out. Sammy Watkins is hurt. Who does Rodgers have to go to? Lazard and Cobb. And Cobb's that situational receiver who knows, he said this the other night, he knows he has a different role than he did 5, 6 years ago, 7 years ago on this team. He's not going to be on the field as much. He might more now because of what Rodgers said, but he's a guy that just knows everything. Him and Rodgers are best friends. And Rodgers has said before, and he said with Pat today, perhaps equally as important is telling the rookie receivers exactly what Rodgers wants when Rodgers isn't in the room. And Rodgers said that's a huge, huge part of Randall's role on this team. He's been with Aaron since, for the last decade. And it just accelerates that learning curve for the younger receivers that they have number 18 in there to be like, all right, this is what Aaron wants on this route, instead of Rodgers having to take time on the practice field in a rushed moment to do that.
His veteran presence has clearly been huge, obviously been massive on 3rd downs. I really like this wide receiver core coming into the season. I know it's a little bit of a, I don't even know what you want to call it, like a grab bag. You get a little bit of this, a little bit of that from these different guys. But my big question coming into the year was like, all right, it's 3rd and 15. It's an obvious passing situation. Like, who's going to be the guy that steps up in those situations that Rodgers trusts, that's going to get open? I really wanted to see that and know that. And I guess, I should have known better. I probably should have guessed that it was going to be Randall Cobb. But that's been his go-to in those situations so far. And so far, Cobb's come up money. As Matt, you tweeted out and you just mentioned the statistics. He has been the guy that in the tough situations when you have to get a first down, it's 3rd and 18, which I mean, 3rd and Randall Cobb, which has been absolutely amazing. So
3rd and Cobb.
3rd and Cobb, 3rd and 18, whatever we want to call it. It's been fantastic. What's that?
Put it on a shirt.
Put it on a shirt. I'm sure it's
on a shirt by now.
At one point. Yeah, exactly. Right. Probably somebody's making money off of it. Probably not us, because we're not smart enough to make shirts, I guess. But Matt, I want to talk about something that you put out on The Athletic. You put out your quarterly report. And I don't obviously want you to spoil everything. I want everyone to go out and read your amazing work at The Athletic. But
I'll spoil it. I don't care.
Maybe 1 or 2 things that were kind of your big, takeaways through the first quarter of the season so far.
Yeah, I mean, one of the questions we were given to answer was, has what the team you covered done in the first quarter of the season been expected or not? This is about what we expected with the Packers. And I think Nicole can agree with that. Like, we expected the offense to have some bumps. We expected them to probably be 3-1 after 4 games or 4-0. The unexpected things was, I think Aaron Rodgers has played worse than everyone expected. But is that really a surprise? Maybe we've just been too conditioned to expect perfect football the last 2 seasons. So yes, there have been some decisions he's made that have been head scratching. And in my now 4 years covering the team, I haven't heard a stretch where Rodgers is this critical of himself. Like after he threw that interception in week 1, where he just threw up a jump ball for Randall Cobb with Harrison Smith in coverage, he was like, that was a dumb decision by me. And he said he played terribly in the first half. He said on the Romeo Doubs interception, I didn't like where I threw that. Like we haven't seen him talk about himself like that. Not because he hasn't been accountable, but because he just hasn't had plays where he's had to show accountability for them. Special teams has improved, and that's obviously with some of the field position stuff that Pat O'Donnell has been able to do, set up the defense better. The defense hasn't lived up to expectations that people both inside and outside the locker room have set. But 2 things I want to ask you guys about. I would say MVP and, breakout player. I chose Rashawn Gary for MVP and Dobbs for breakout player. I mean, he leads the team in receiving yards, catches, tied for the lead in receiving touchdowns. And then Rashawn Gary has just been a beast. And really that pass rush has saved this defense from not completely falling apart, but he's been the best player on this defense. And like I wrote last week, he's going to cost the Packers a hell of a lot of money.
Nicole, do you have answers for either?
Just to say that I think those are the probably 2 that would be the best fit for those for breakout and for MVP so far. I mean, Rashawn Gary has been by hands down the best player on this defense so far. He's been the bright spot when I think otherwise, like you said, the defense has kind of been lower than both inside and outside the locker room expected. And then Romeo Doubs. I'm a big Romeo Doubs fan because he's so shy and
he talks so quietly.
He does, and he's just so precious, and we love talking to him in the locker room. I mean, he's very quiet. We want him to talk a little louder, we always say. But he's just you know that he cares, and he's really trying to say the right thing. And that's off the field stuff, but just big Romeo Doubs fan. And I think that I do think, of course, you're going to see the rookie mistakes from him, like the would have been touchdown the other day. Obviously, you want to see him hold on to that. But the thing about him, and Matt LaFleur always says this, is he's not afraid to get the ball again, and he's not going to make the same mistake, in the same sequence twice. Like Rodgers is still going to have to throw to him because he has no other choice, and Dobbs doesn't really flinch after those moments. So I think that Dobbs, for the most part, has lived up to what we expected after all that hype he got during training camp. So definitely the breakout player, I think, so far.
Yeah, I think as far as the first one, MVP, to me, there'd only be 2 choices, Rashawn or Kenny. Like those are, to me, I don't think anyone else gets in the conversation too much. So
Aaron Jones,
maybe. Yeah. But he had the fumble against Tampa too.
Right.
Had a really rough blitz pickup that Allen Lazard was wide open for a touchdown this week too. But overall, I love Aaron. He's been phenomenal too. I would say probably Rashawn, I think, is the right pick, because I think he single-handedly won them a game this week, where if he doesn't have that game, they're probably 2-2. So yeah, I think that's a fair one. Breakout player, like you could maybe make like an obtuse argument for like a Rudy Ford on special teams or like a Pat O'Donnell or something like that. But as far as like a true breakout, yeah, I think Romeo's the one, because like, I think people forget, like, this is a 4th round pick. Like, this is Jamon Moore territory. And we saw like Jamon Moore couldn't even get on the field. Right. Like, Jesus. So I know that like they're picked, they're on the exact same spot. And it's no foregone conclusion that this guy can even get on the field, much less have an impact. The fact that he's making plays on the field that at times are reminiscent of some of the really great wide receivers that we've seen over the years in Green Bay is a heck of a testament. Is it perfect? No. Are there some hiccups and mistakes along the way? Of course, but man, you can see the future very clearly with Romeo Doubs, and he's already been a breakout guy. I don't have an argument with either of those picks.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to add about Doubs, and I think I'm glad Nicole brought it up, is like a lot of times in week 1, you saw Christian Watson drop that ball and Rodgers didn't really go to him again. I know he got a couple more touches, but I remember in the preseason game against the Chiefs, I believe it was, might've been the 49ers. He had that bad drop on the sideline, but then the very next play, he caught a slant in traffic for 9 yards and held on. Against the Patriots, he has the fumble on his first touch, but then Rodgers keeps going back to him, has 2 big catches on the last drive, even after he drops the touchdown. Against the Buccaneers, he fumbles his first touch, even though he recovered it, and then goes on to have 8 catches on his, or I guess 7 more catches on his other 7 targets. It's impressive for a rookie to kind of just, we talk a lot about compartmentalizing. It's easier said than done. You have not a backbreaking mistake, but a mistake, and then just to like flush that and come around and have big moments later in the game. And it also speaks to Rodgers' trust in him. Like, Aaron Rodgers is a guy, granted this year it's more out of necessity perhaps than desire that he keeps going to Doubs. But when I asked Rodgers about it after the game, he basically said, I threw a 3rd down back shoulder fade to him for a touchdown. Of course I have confidence in the kid. Like, the good Romeo does outweighs the bad, and that has instilled his trust in Rodgers. And I think that's evident, and he's going to keep going to him. And guess what? They're going to have to live with the occasional drop, just like they did with MVS, because the 75-yard touchdown that you got from MVS is going to outweigh the drop you had on, 2nd and 11 or something.
And just like they got through some of the hiccups with Devontae Adams in his second year too. Like it takes time for these rookies. And I tweeted out, he's like right on pace with any of these rookie wider, like the rookie season, Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, Greg Jennings, Devontae Adams. Like Jennings is the only one, James Jones, Jennings is the only one that has like a little step on any of the other ones. He's probably second best of that entire group so far. So it's been an impressive 4-game start. And to me, it may not have seemed like much on that last drive where it's just like, kind of those run solutions to Doubs, but like the faith and trust on an overtime drive for Rodgers to check out of a run and throw those quick hot routes to Romeo on the outside. I guarantee, I know he, like you said, he threw the back shoulder to him. So of course he trusts him, but that I guarantee that's going to go even further to build Rodgers' trust with him, that he, in that situation, went back to back to him to get those pickups and Romeo delivered. That's going to go a long way with 12, and I would be my guess. Let's finish up with a couple quick thoughts here. I want to quickly go over the state of the offensive line. I thought the other big telling thing from Matt LaFleur's presser this week was when asked specifically if do you need to get Yash at right tackle? And what did he say? Maybe they're certainly
thinking about it. Yeah.
Yeah. They're thinking about it. Certainly it's been a discussion for them. Nicole, I'll start with you. Do you want to see Yash at right tackle and Elton kicked inside, or what is the best iteration of this Packers offensive line in your opinion?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's not a hot take to say that Josh Nijman is one of their best 5, so probably needs to be out there. I think my question is more so when will they make the change? I think that we probably will see a change, but I'm just more wondering how long they'll wait before they make it. And I think part of that is probably you need to make sure that Bakhtiari is good to go. And right now it seems like things have been pretty positive for him. But I mean, yeah, I think there's definitely you put Nijman on the right side, put Jenkins inside. And maybe it was Schneidman who I heard talking about it or say something about it. Do you put Jenkins on the left side with Bakhtiari and then move Runyon over? So I think it's more of a, yes, Nijman is part of that best 5. It's pretty set in stone who the best 5 are. It's just a matter of who's playing the best where. And that's what they need to figure out. And I'm sure there's a lot of that going on behind closed doors that we won't find out about until we see them on the field together.
And that's a good point. And best five is different than best five at their positions. Because like Josh Nijman at left tackle is in the best five, but so is David Bakhtiari at left tackle. And you can't play both of them at the same time. LaFleur said that they have rep Nijman at right tackle in practice, but we all know that means nothing if he can't do it in a game. Elton has played one career snap at right guard, and it was either in a preseason game or on a field goal unit, I believe. It wasn't in like an actual game, or maybe it was in a kneel down scenario, not on like a meaningful snap. I'm sure he could do it, but we just don't know if he can. John Runyon Jr. is in the best five right now. And if he can switch over to right guard, then I think that's the move. It's a big if, because I understand I'm simplifying that switch a lot. It's not as easy as I'm making it out to be. But if John Runyon Jr. and Josh Nijman can play on the right side at right guard and right tackle respectively, then your best five is David Bakhtiari, Elton Jenkins, Josh Myers, Runyon, and Nijman. And sure, Zach, I know everyone wants Zach Tom. Just put in Zach Tom over Royce Newman. That's nice that he was good in a couple joint practices and preseason games. We don't know if the kid can play in an actual game against actual defensive lines. He might be able to, but I think the coaches would much rather the veterans that they have right now, like they kind of had to put in Josh Myers at center out of necessity last year as a rookie because they didn't have Corey Linsley. They needed Elton at left tackle because Bakhtiari was injured. So I think that's the best five. Royce Newman hasn't been as bad as people think, but
agreed.
Even with what he's been, he's not in the best five. So we'll see what they do. Like Nicole said, I don't know how imminent that change is, but I don't think it's too far down the road because I don't think right tackle is Elton's best position.
No, I agree. Having Royce Newman as your first guy off the bench, and then Zach Tom after that, and then Jake Hansen after that, like that's a good 6, 7, 8. That's where those guys should slot in. And I think if you can figure out those top five, you're in an ideal situation. I think, Nicole, you mentioned a great point as well, is like maybe they would have liked to put Yash at right tackle all along, but with David's injury situation and not knowing if they, he's going to be able to make it through a full game, it's tough to rep him at right tackle all week. And then all of a sudden David's like, not going to be able to get through this game. And then he's got to switch back to left and your entire plan is immediately out the window. I think if they start gaining confidence that David's going to be able to play consistently at left tackle, then maybe they make that switch. And I think, as you said, like the timing is going to be key there. It does seem like their best five are 2 left tackles, 2 left guards, and a center. And that's obviously a challenge that they've got to figure out because the last thing I'll say here is I think that they have to keep the long-term in mind too. Like they have the opportunity to get Yash back next season as well. Bakhtiari is probably not going anywhere based off of his contract. Myers is going to be here a while. Newman, Tom, those guys are going to be here. Runyon's not going anywhere. Like they have the opportunity, I think, to kind of make this decision for not only now, but like what's going to work best, assuming they're healthy week 1 of the playoffs, but also what's their best long-term alignment. I have a feeling Elton's going to probably get paid as well. So like, if you think Elton's your best left guard and you want to keep Elton and Bakhtiari next to each other, and you think Runyon and Nijman can play the right side and they just need to get acclimated to it, better now than like later in the season, or, just make that decision now, rip the Band-Aid and see what they can do. So I'll be interested to see if they make any changes, but it does seem like for a team that has stressed best 5 offensive linemen for, I don't know, since Matt LaFleur like walked in the building, that right now they haven't been doing that. And it probably would indicate that maybe they'll make a change at some point. Matt, were you going to add something?
No, I agree with everything there.
Awesome. Guys, this has been absolutely amazing. I want to get you guys out of here. Matt, you got to start getting some sleep ahead of time for London, and you've got a bunch of Aaron Judge celebrations to attend to. So
Demovsky already clipped a video of my reaction and put it on Twitter. I haven't watched it yet.
Oh, geez.
Fantastic. I can't freaking wait.
I can't pretend to be happy. You know what? I like Aaron Judge because he could be a future Red Sox. So
get out of here. No way. If he's
also, I brought my floss.
Oh, there it is. I was going to rip everybody.
She knows how to play to the crowd there with the floss.
Absolutely amazing. So like mid-game flossing?
Listen, I care about my dental hygiene and I don't want to be walking around with stuff in my teeth. So I bring floss, and sometimes you just got to get in there.
Whatever.
I appreciate your dental
hygiene. My dentist appreciates it.
I more
he
appreciate
does.
you guys taking the time and doing this. You guys are the absolute best. Hopefully we can do it again sometime. Nicole, tell us what you're working on and where we can find your work and where we can follow you on Twitter.
I am working on same old Packer season keeps us busy. And a little high school football thrown in there too, because we do it all at Fox 11. You can find me on Twitter. It's just at Nicole Menner because I'm boring and have no creativity. And Instagram is the same. And that's about it.
Awesome. Thank you so much again. And then Matt, where can we find your work, and tell us about the quarterly article and anything else you got coming up?
Yeah, I won't be plugging my Instagram because I have nothing that is worth your time on there.
I post work related things on Instagram. So
there you go.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying I'm just not worth anyone's time in general on Instagram. But yeah, I don't have the same diversity that they do at Fox 11. I only cover the Packers. Nothing too grand in the hopper right now. If you want to check out what I wrote today, go ahead. I won't hate you if you don't. A couple more things coming this week, and then fun London trip. So if I'm not sleeping during the game, I'll have you covered. So will Fox 11 from London.
Do you have a nice
England.
suit picked out?
No, because I don't like packing heavy on road trips. And
but London, you got to have a cool outfit.
I mean, I'll bring one. I don't want to have to check my bag, across, an ocean. So I'll have a suit, but this isn't something where I like plan it out 10 days in advance. I'll pick out something right before I leave for my flight. It'll be worthwhile, but not my normal A-game stuff. Probably.
You got to get something while you're there. That solves the problem. Go to a fancy boutique and get yourself a brand new suit.
A nice European outfit.
I'm on a budget right now.
Fair enough. You guys are absolute legends. Thank you so much for doing this. And Matt, by the way, is extremely underselling his work at The Athletic. It is worth the subscription fee alone. Film breakdowns are fantastic. And obviously all the work that he does, as well as Jason Wilde and the rest of the Athletic crew. But again, Matt's worth it for the price of admission alone. So make sure to follow both of them on Twitter, at Nicole Menner, at Matt Schneidman. You can follow me at Andy Herman NFL. You can follow the podcast at Pack-A-Day Podcast. I'll be right back here tomorrow on YouTube. We got happy hour coming up on Friday before the big game, so check that out as well. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.